A Calgary transit driver robbed on shift.
The fact that it's a deadly weapon that this youth is using.
The suspect, a child, who police say was with other youth on a crime spree.
They shouldn't panic. There are some alternatives.
A prescription painkiller shortage, what pharmacists say you should do. And a Canmore artist lands an international audience.
CTV Calgary, local breaking news with Camilla DiGiuseppe.
Good afternoon. Calgary police arrested but released an 11-year-old boy accused of holding up a bus driver in an armed robbery. Terry Fikowski is at the Earlton station. Terry, this is where police say a crime spree came to a conclusion with a driver being robbed.
Camilla, police say that the bus driver was parked here at the Earlton transit station around 11:45 last night when the young suspect is accused of threatening the driver with a knife and demanding his phone. Now, that driver was able to talk him down a bit and de-escalate the situation, but the boy did make off with some cash, according to police. They say he joined a group of teens who were waiting outside the bus and they all ran away. Now, investigators believe that group is responsible for a robbery of a liquor store along 11th Avenue Southwest earlier in the night. They say a group of teens ran in, grabbed several bottles of liquor worth over $200 and took off. Now, police were able to track the group down to 25th Street and McLeod Trail Southwest and arrested 3 youth, including the 11-year-old accused of holding up the bus driver. But the young boy was released back into the custody of his parents because children under 12 cannot be charged under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, which is upsetting to the union that represents transit employees.
Whether you're 11 or 80, if you're harming somebody at work and the damage that can cause to their mental health and to their physical health if something had gone wrong, I mean it doesn't make any difference the age. It's horrific. It's a terrible situation.
Now, police have charged a 14-year-old girl with shoplifting and 3 counts of failing to comply with a release order. They say charges are also pending against a 16-year-old girl in connection to the liquor store robbery. Camilla?
Terry, thank you so much. A Calgary man has been charged with sexual assault after police say he met a woman through a dating app. The victim told
this morning
police,
concerns about
the woman told police that she met the man online in November 2024 and later in person at a restaurant. Police allege the woman went to the man's home where she was sexually assaulted. She came forward this year. 30-year-old Nathaniel Mark Thompson has been charged, and he has a court date in September. Police are reminding Calgarians there's no time limit to report a sexual assault in Canada. Police say 5 people were injured after a crash involving a stolen truck. Now, this was the aftermath near Rocky View General Hospital. Police say they tried to pull the white truck over earlier, but the driver took off. As the truck was heading south on 14th, the driver crashed into 3 other vehicles. Police say no one was seriously injured. Charges are pending. Calgary's mayor is calling a bike lane conversation with Alberta's transportation minister productive, but it's a possibility some lanes could still be moved or removed. Let's bring in our Tim Brooke with the details. Tim, the 2 levels of government met after threats from the province.
Well, that's right, Camilla. Alberta's transportation minister has hinted multiple times now that governments of both Calgary and Edmonton need to pause any new bike lanes they're putting in and review and potentially even remove the existing bike lanes in their cities. Devin Dreeshen insists time and time again that certain bike lanes are creating traffic and making downtown parking difficult, despite not yet citing any specific studies to back up those claims. Now, he's not ruling out using provincial legislation to change the city's roads. Dreeshen has previously clashed with the mayor, but Jody Gondek said today's closed-door meeting was diplomatic. In fact, she pledged flexibility moving forward.
In some spots where people have expressed some challenges, it is possible to explore other solutions. So the team remains open to understanding the best way to do things and to ensure that cyclists are kept safe and that our roads are working in the best way possible.
Now, across the country, there was a relevant decision today to all of this. Another Conservative provincial government in Ontario was trying to go against the city's wishes, and a court ruled that a provincial law that would remove 3 bike lanes in Toronto is against the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So a bit of a roadblock for the provincial government there, Camilla, trying to remove bike lanes. And it's a decision that governments here in Calgary and in Alberta are no doubt watching very closely.
Indeed, Tim. Thank you so much. BC wine producers are blaming the Alberta government of playing hardball with its latest tax grab. Ron Kubik of Lightning Rock Winery in Summerland, BC, says his sales have declined with Alberta consumers. It's because a new levy brought forward this spring by the provincial government. A flat tax of $4.11 is added to every liter of wine sold in Alberta. Any bottle of wine that costs between $15 and $20, a 5% rate is applied. Between $20 and $25, a 10% tax is added. And any bottle more than $25 has 15% added.
We don't tax Alberta beef when it's coming across the border. We don't tax Alberta wheat when it's coming across the border, even though we do both of those in BC. We don't tax Alberta oil because we do oil in both areas. But they just decided that in the wine business, we're going to punish small producers like myself, 3,200 cases a year. We're going to punish them, and we're going to punish Alberta wine drinkers who go, you know what, we don't mind buying Canadian. We know that it costs more in Canada to do business.
In a statement, the province says the tax is meant to support the long-term viability of Alberta's liquor industry. New data shows that in May, more Albertans opted to dine out rather than eat in. Stephanie Thomas joins us now from along 17th Avenue Southwest. Stephanie, economists say the restaurant sector should be cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, Camilla, ATB officials say that the data reflects a time when the Buy Canadian movement and also the movement to staycation this summer was gaining momentum. And so the data was released by Statistics Canada a couple days ago, looking specifically at restaurant sales. Compared to the first 5 months of 2024, year to date, restaurant sales in Alberta have grown by 5.2%. ATB believes that's because of strong population growth and more Canadians traveling domestically and an increase in American travelers to Alberta. Some restaurant owners say now is a good time to get into business, but considering how rough recent years have been with the pandemic, inflation, and economic instability, celebration is restrained.
Some people are definitely still feeling the effects of the pandemic. I think most of us are, but it's a huge relief to be where we are. I think a lot of people have learned to kind of, as you do in life, you kind of learn to ride the waves, you kind of learn to navigate, you learn to adapt. So we've done that.
Economists also say that attendance numbers for the Stampede and 4K days were very strong, and so it looks like the restaurant and bar sector is going to do well for the rest of the forecast for 2025. Camilla.
Stephanie, thank you. Let's bring in our Danielle Savonis, our first look at the weather. Now, you look like you're ready to head out.
Yes.
Enjoy this beautiful weather today.
I matched the heat warnings on the map. You'll see in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll blend in like a floating head. Yes, so we have hot weather in place for many communities. In fact, some areas even have heat warnings. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I really hope you're enjoying the sunshine and the warmth. We lose this by the weekend and the rain will be back. So it's been a while since we've been in the heat and the brightness and getting some vitamin D. 25 degrees is the current temperature at the airport. Your 24-hour forecast is brought to you by Fifth Avenue Volkswagen, where you can win your ride. See dealers for details, or visit fifthavvw.com. And not a whole lot to talk about. Yeah, we have a little bit of wind out there, times up to 40 kilometers per hour, and that will arrive again tomorrow afternoon, but mainly sunny, looking at a high of 28 tomorrow, maybe a few fog patches in the morning as well. Your full forecast coming up, Kim.
All right, Danielle, thank you. Coming up, signatures needed. The petition now open on Alberta's new referendum question, and what it takes to get the Lion King musical ready for opening night tonight in Calgary. And if you have a news tip, text us at 10400. Signatures can now be collected for an approved referendum question. The question is, do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? Former Conservative MLA Thomas Lukaszuk is behind the initiative. Alberta's chief electoral officer says because the question was approved before legislative changes to the Citizen Initiative Act, it will need to follow the old rules. That means over 293,000 signatures need to be gathered by October 28th. Medicine Hat's chief administrator has been placed on a temporary leave of absence. Council members voted unanimously to place Ann Mitchell on leave but pay her during the absence. City Council won't give the reasons, just that it's a human resources matter. Her powers will now be delegated to the city clerk. All right, let's talk about the heat because I don't think it's going to stick around quite the way that it has been these past couple days.
You're right. So basically, we'll hold on to it from now until much of Friday. But late Friday, things will start to change. The weather pattern starts to shift. And that means by the weekend, temperatures will start to cool again, and we have some rainfall on the way. Likely that rainfall starting to kick in somewhat on Friday night, okay? So we'll talk about this in the whole longer range forecast, but first we'll focus just on current temperatures in and around the city. 25 at the airport, 26 downtown and at Windsport. Just outside of the city in Bragg Creek, 24, and heading off in the other direction over near Strathmore, 26. So a good amount of heat, not in really dangerously warm at this point, but in some communities we're looking at getting to that more excessive heat, and I'll show you that in the heat warning in just a second. Get your daily dose of greens at Serenity Golf Club, just 20 minutes east of the city. And here we go. We're in those high 20s in Medicine Hat, Lethbridge as well, mid 20s for Brooks and through Calgary. Banff at this point is in the higher 20s as well. So that even warmer air is starting to filter in. Warning criteria is different when you look at a heat warning. And again, here's how I blend in. We were talking about that earlier. Heat warning criteria is a bit different. So when you look at the far south, Pincher Creek over to Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, it's a bit of a different warning criteria. But for Calgary and all of these areas, we look at basically as long as it hits 29 degrees for 2 straight days and the overnight lows are at least 14, that's when it sparks up the heat warning. And that's why these areas are under that, because you don't even really get a lot of relief at night, even if you open the windows. Strathmore down to Vulcan, Champion over to Lowman, Brooks up through Hannah over to Empress. These areas under the heat warning the next couple of days will be in that heat warning criteria, and then things will break for the weekend. Here's that instability we talked about. We had it yesterday right along the mountains, a little more intense. Just earlier, about an hour ago, we had a severe thunderstorm warning in the Fernie area. That has since ended. But we basically have this really kicking up on the BC side, but we're so stable here with this ridge of high pressure that it's not really able to do anything in much of Alberta. But of course, closer to the border here, even through Pincher Creek, and definitely through Christmas Pass, there is that potential for late day thunderstorm activity really for the next hour or so, and then you see it quiets down. This is a look at 9:30 p.m. But then that risk comes back, a small risk anyway, for tomorrow. All right, when we look at tomorrow, all sunshine for all communities for the morning and most of the afternoon, and then later in the day, once again, closer to the supper hours, we'll get that development way off to the west along the mountains. You may even see a little bit of that. 30% chance of seeing any of that in Pincher Creek, Christmas Pass area. Friday's a nice day. The rain will creep in, though, by the supper hours and start to intensify in many areas in the overnight hours and at times through Saturday as well. Here's a look at that upper air analysis. There's that ridge of high pressure. This is why heat's been able to build, but it's not going to be able to build on the weekend because we lose this pattern. So just a look at your longer range forecast for Calgary. 28 for tomorrow. Later in the day, the winds will pick up to about 40 kilometers per hour. Lots of sunshine for Thursday and Friday. Friday night and through Saturday and Sunday, though, we're looking at on and off rain possible. Temperatures will cool throughout the weekend as well, as you can see here, and we're looking at picking out 5 to 10 millimeters on Saturday.
Health Canada is warning some prescription painkillers may not be available because of an ongoing drug shortage. The drugs impacted are acetaminophen with codeine and oxycodone. Health Canada says the manufacturing issue at Teva Canada Limited, the major supplier, is causing ripple effects. One local pharmacist recommends talking to your doctor or pharmacist to discuss alternatives.
It's really helpful for us if patients are on these products that they call us before they're completely out of their medication to give us a bit of time to figure it out. They shouldn't panic. There are some alternatives that can be figured out for them. It just might take a bit of time because pharmacies will need to talk to the physicians.
Health Canada says addressing the shortage is a top priority and is looking at options for increasing access to these products. The situation is expected to improve by mid-August, but supply constraints are expected to continue until the end of September. The number of lab-confirmed E. coli cases linked to the Saskatoon farm in Okotoks has risen to 36. Alberta Health Services says 11 of those cases also tested positive for a parasitic infection and several norovirus and rotavirus. More than 230 people have reported falling ill after eating at the farm south of Calgary. As of yesterday, 3 people had been hospitalized. AHS expanded the exposure window from July 1st to July 18th. Food service facilities at the Saskatoon farm will be closed until AHS deems it safe to reopen. Well, it is one of the fastest growing municipalities in Alberta, which means keeping up with critical infrastructure is a must. Next, Airdrie gets flushed with millions in funding. Steady on both sides of the border. Joining me is Leanna Washniak, investment advisor with the Popwich-Carmeli Advisory Group. So, Leanna, the Bank of Canada is signaling possible interest cut rates ahead, but no changes today.
That's right. They decided to hold steady, and that was widely expected. As you mentioned, economists on both sides of the border actually were expecting neither of the central banks to make a change today, and that was in fact what happened. Now, here in Canada, the Bank of Canada did say that they are seeing some potential for growth in the Canadian economy, assuming the tariff situation stays as it currently is. They did lay out a couple of different scenarios with different tariff options attached to them, but they said under current conditions, they are seeing slight growth for the second half of the year for the overall Canadian economy. So no recessionary signals from them there. But again, the market not necessarily pricing in a cut in September either. So that might be the end of the year before we actually do see a rate cut.
And Leanna, markets reacting to a similar decision by the U.S. Federal Reserve.
That's right. And again, this one was also widely anticipated. The interesting part of this particular decision is that it's been very politicized. There has been a lot of call from the U.S. administration, particularly from President Trump, to cut rates because the economy is doing well. And there were actually some GDP numbers that came out today that showed the second quarter of the U.S. economy doing better than expected. Now, a lot of those numbers were inflated because there was a record trade deficit in quarter one as companies rushed to buy goods before the tariffs hit. So the second quarter numbers are a little bit artificially inflated, but the Fed's sticking to what they had planned on doing and basically not cutting on this round of decision.
All right, Leanna, very interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The provincial government is providing $50 million to upgrade Airdrie's wastewater system. A new 7-kilometer pipeline will be built connecting to Calgary's wastewater treatment system. Airdrie's treated water comes from Calgary and it sends wastewater to the housing plant for processing. The province says the pipeline will support an additional 45,000 housing units. Airdrie's population jumped 25% since 2022, surpassing 90,000. Construction on the $114 million project starts next year and will be ready in 2027. A court ruling in Ontario could impact the future of bike lanes in Calgary. Here's Tara Nelson with a look ahead to CTV News at 6.
Hi, Camilla. Setting a new legal precedent, a court has struck down the Ontario government's attempt to remove some bike lanes in Toronto. That comes as Calgary's mayor met with Alberta's transportation minister to speak about the future of bike lanes in our city. Coming up at 6, we'll tell you how our province is reacting to that court ruling today. Also ahead, Alberta is being accused of discouraging interprovincial trade. It centers around the added tax on wine. Just ahead, what you need to know if you plan to buy direct from a BC winery. Camilla.
Tara, thank you. Kicking Horse Mountain Resort in Golden, BC is one step closer to reopening its gondola. In March, a cabin near the base of the gondola fell to the ground. No one was seriously hurt, and the gondola has been closed ever since. Before it can reopen, all the cabin hangar arms need to be replaced. Those newly manufactured parts now have arrived at the resort. Kicking Horse says an update will be coming soon. Well, too early to talk about the skiing and the boarding because today we're sitting at 25 degrees. It's partly cloudy out there. Danielle has more details after the break. Danielle is back, and let's give him some more good news.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it. It's important that we talk about and take time to enjoy the good stuff.
Absolutely.
Because the rain will be back. And we've had a lot of it, as you know. Almost record-breaking for July. 25 degrees is the current temperature. It feels a little hotter out there for sure because I think it's been so long. 28 degrees, so even warmer for tomorrow and for Friday. And then by Friday night, the conditions will deteriorate and we'll get rain Friday night in through Saturday, and it could be significant once again. For tomorrow, just wind in the afternoon at times.
All right, Danielle, thank you. A Canmore artist is back from a trip to London, where one of his pieces was part of an international art event. Stephen Bend is an abstract artist who paints mainly for himself, family, and friends. His son encouraged him to share his talents with the world, so Bend submitted his work to this year's London Art Biennale and was chosen. Curators told him there were over 10,000 pieces submitted and only 350 artists were selected. The painting Ben submitted was done for his wife, and it took him 5 months to finish.
I wanted to convey that, you know, we've been together almost 46 years. And so that love and passion, you know, it does change, it does mature, but nevertheless it's just as strong as it was. And so the piece called Passion Ascending is actually a celebration of both my love for Phyllis, but also a reawakening and, you know, a renewed passion for my painting.
Ben says it was a little intimidating to be amongst such talent at the show, but says he enjoyed the experience so much he's already working on a piece to submit for next year's show in Italy. The crowds will be roaring with delight with the return of Disney's The Lion King at the Southern Jubilee tonight. The award-winning musical will run for 3 weeks through to August 17th. It's no small feat to bring this show to life. It takes 17 trucks to transport the puppets, set pieces, costumes, and takes crews 4 days to set up the production in a new city. So the new city, Calgary, tonight. And guess what? Tickets are still available to catch Simba, Nala, Pumbaa, and the entire cast of The Lion King. They're bringing the animated film to life again right here in our city. You can head for tickets to BroadwayAcrossCanada.ca or Ticketmaster. What a beautiful, beautiful set. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Now here's the early edition of the CTV National News.